Happy Saturday. Welcome, welcome, guys. My name is Raquel Flores, and welcome to Raquel Flores Connection Corner. I am so thrilled to be here and to welcome every single one of you from all corners of the world. Please let me know if you can hear me well, if everything's coming through correctly. And I just want to make sure that everything is running fine. You guys are seeing me, but I'm just so excited to be here. I hope you're having a fantastic Saturday wherever in whatever corner of the world you are, because this is what it's about. The weekend is to relax, enjoy all the festivities, whatever you got going on. So, anyhow, but let me know where you're chiming in from. I love to pull up the comments. I love to see where, like, which country, right? Because we are global. We are definitely global. And shout out to you, Miss Jody Lamb. I already see you. Thank you so much for popping in. I know this is earlier than most of my shows, but it's because we have to do some things right after this show. And, we have activities with my daughters and just so many different things that I have to get done. And so this was the only fitting time. And I don't want to miss a weekend without seeing your beautiful faces displayed and just, listening to your conversations, seeing how you connect. Because at the end of the day, this is about connecting. That's why this show is called Connection Corner. I use it as a safe space for you guys to be able to connect with one another. So I love it. So, cheers to that. I have my coffee, main character energy. I always love joking around with one, with the letters and everything the sayings that the cups have because it really identifies with you. I don't know which one is your favorite one. I know, Jody, you have a couple of mugs that I love in your home, and then maybe you could take a picture of it and post it. I think that would be really cool. Stephen and my brother, thank you so much for coming. How's everything in NYC? Well, you're outside of New York City, I think. But how's everything there, brother? Let us know. We love you so much. Kevin, hi, Mr. Mingle. You are in south of France. Hi, welcome, welcome. I love when people start, just telling me where they're at. Time differences, so many different cultural differences, but I love it. We're at the end of the day, we are all one. So, a little bit about what's been going on with me, y'all. So, this week, it's been very intense. Actually, everything's been very intense since after Hispanic Heritage Month, filled with festivities, filled with so many projects, collaborations. After all, I am about collaborations and I love it. So, just wanted to let you know that, we are in the community. I want to give a quick shout out to an individual who made an amazing event happen this week. So I'm just going to show it to y'all. This is my friend Khalil Vincent with TechFest Live in here in Houston. And yesterday I had the honor and the pleasure of serving as a moderator for a panel. And my gosh, I will tell you, the panelists were just out of this world. Everything is, tech inclined, but it is how do we start bridging the gap in technology education for the underserved communities in the underserved population. So focusing more on the youth, but let me tell you, it was so inspirational, and I was just amazed. I was blown away at the people who attended. It was mostly geared for students, high school students, middle school students, but just the enormity of it. It was over 700 students who were there present at the Post Houston, which was the former postal office in Houston. So it's an old building, but they've renovated it. They made it so tech inclined. Like, it's so beautiful. I was so inspired. But me, like I said, it was for me, it was such a fulfilling experience because I was talking to high school students. And when I go back and think about it, when I was in high school, when I was in my own journey learning English and, acculturating to the US, I remember sometimes feeling alone, feeling like no one understood me, or feeling that I didn't have a route or a way to get to where I wanted to be. But in this case, this gave me a ray of hope, a ray of sunshine for those kids because they have a way. They find a way through STEM, right? Through science, through technology, through engineering, and through just everything that has to do with mathematics. Sometimes people believe that they don't have a route, and I will pick this. And I give a shout out to Rhiannon, which is huge. She was one of the panelists. She talks about girls, girls have interest in tech, they have interest in so many different things in mathematics, but there comes a point where they hit age 8 and 9 and that interest dies, or it just weakens. So what can we do in order to continue cultivating that in our youth, so that they see that there is a path? Because as we see traditionally, they are more engineering and all those mathematic careers are more male dominated, and we understand that. But how do we start paving the way for little girls to understand that and see that there is a path? So this is also part of my one of my missions in my platform, to be able to instill that educational value and for individuals to see that there is a path to whatever they want to do. So it was very inspiring, to say the least, to see all those kids in the audience, to talk to them, not just at them, to talk to them and include them in the conversation. So shout out to you, Khalil. You did an amazing job at hosting this and putting it together. Shout out to Joey, just Cup of Joey. He was the host as well. And it was just an honor to meet so many people. Yes, Randy, LinkedIn is sucking with notifications. I understand. And I may not see some of your comments if you're commenting from mobile. So I apologize, but we're going to be here. Just know that I love you. I'm seeing your comments on Restream, but if you're commenting from mobile, I will not see it. But anyhow, so just wanted to give a shout out again to Khalil. He also received a a certificate from the White House for his work with the community and technology. So, big cheers, kudos to you. I'm so proud, and I know your entire family was there rooting for you, and so proud of you. So, Khalil, keep up the good work. My goodness, like so many things going on in the community, and like I said, I am just so thrilled to share that with you. Oh, and now my cat, he's up there. So don't get scared if he starts staring at the screen because he looks like he's possessed. Anyways, as you see, this is my house. It's an organic, authentic as it gets. My daughters are still asleep, but if they come and they'll show up, I mean, that's just the way it is, right? It's mommy life. I'm a single mommy, and I live that, and I enjoy it. And but things happen, right? Things happen, and we're here to support one another. But anyhow, so having said that, I do want to give a shout out to one of my biggest cheerleaders out there, and I'm also your cheerleader, my brother Chris Malizuski from Walking Tall Movement. I lost a bet to you, so and I pay. So our bet was for fantasy football. If you guys don't know, we have this league for the Hounds of Business. It's a fantasy football league, and there's 9 of us, 10 of us. Shout out to all of the ones who are in there. And so we have side bets whenever our team loses. And unfortunately, my team lost against his during their week, and so we had a bet. So he was so gracious. Thank you, Chris. You are so gracious. You had to make sure that I pay up and I fulfill the bet. So he didn't even give me the opportunity to actually purchase anything. He actually sent it himself. So without further ado, I have to pay up, and my I guess the challenge was I needed to wear a bears thingy. So here it is, Mr. Chris. Take a picture of it. Go Bears. That's what you wanted me to say. So isn't this fancy? No, it is heavy. I don't know where you found this, Chris, but it's hilarious. So here it is. I am wearing it, as you can see. I don't think I'm gonna wear it for the duration of the show, but I'll have it right here with me. But take a picture of it, take a screenshot, whatever you need to do with it. But here you go. Go Bears. There you go. The things that I do for my friends. I mean, I'm telling you, this is funny. I already wore a Bama shirt for Mr. Mark Reed because I lost to him. And now this. I already lost to my tocaya Raquel Borras. Shout out to you, love. So I don't know what she's gonna have me do. But you know what? I'm a good loser. It's okay. I can take it. I can take the pain. I can take the heat, because it's all about camaraderie. It's all about, making those connections and building those connections. But enough about me. I want to make sure that you guys are in the comments connecting. Make sure you definitely connect with the people who are pulling up in the comments. You know why? Because those individuals are leaders. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, they're leaders of the hound. So before I bring my guest up, I want to shout out just a couple, sending love to everyone. Hounds of Business community. My goodness, guys. Mike Asherbrenner, thank you so much for everything. This week has been insane for all of us. So many projects, so many live streams. Like literally on one day, I think it's like during one day, I went on to 6 different live streams from the Hounds community. That's just to show you that we are a very active community. We're very busy and cross pollinating, cross collaborating, and just doing so many wonderful things at the same time. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for all the support. Thank you for everything that you do for me on a daily basis. Thank you for showing up for one another. Randy House, my OG, I love you. Thank you so much. My sister Nicola Galindo, mi hermana, I cannot wait to collaborate with you in this fantastic book about legacies, what legacy you're going to leave for your family. I mean, it's coming out in December, y'all, right? Just before the holidays. So it will be a good, stuffer. I think it would be fantastic. So I cannot wait to collaborate with you, love. Just people pulling up from all over the place. My gosh, I love you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But without further ado, I will definitely like to bring my guest up because he's been waiting patiently in the background, and we just have so much to talk about in all the initiatives that he's doing. So, anyhow, without further ado, please help me welcome from the Outlier Project, Mr. Peter Schaller. Hello.
Good morning. Good morning, Raquel.
Good.
Thanks for creating the space. Looks like you have an amazing community.
Oh my goodness. When I tell you that it's one of the most rewarding communities, the Hounds of Business. And now for me to be a new member also of the Outlier Project. Thank you so much. Shout out Mr. Scott McGregor and everyone who's welcomed me. You are a key member of that. So, but tell us a little bit about you and what you do. Mhm.
All right. So, yeah, the Outlier Project, actually, our connection comes through the Outlier Project, sort of unexpected. I had lunch with Chris in Chicago a couple of
Mhm.
weeks ago. I didn't even know he was going to be at that lunch, and now we are connected here in this great space on a chilly Saturday morning from Atlanta. So
Mhm.
I live and work in Nicaragua. I'm just on the road for a couple of weeks, meeting with some donors. We have a fairly large fundraising event in Atlanta tonight. We've had other events in Cincinnati, Wisconsin, and Rayo De Sol is a small faith-based community development organization working exclusively in Nicaragua. So we work in the
Mhm.
north central highlands in a region called Matagalpa. It's a coffee growing region. So anybody who likes coffee, it's a great
Mm.
place to visit.
Cheers, my friend. Mhm.
Yeah, I got coffee from our mountains with me right now. And we work with some of the most vulnerable communities really in the Western Hemisphere. Nicaragua has historically been one of the most challenged countries in the Western Hemisphere, for not say impoverished. There's different statistics that place different countries at different levels, but Nicaragua
Mhm.
has for decades been one of the countries with greatest needs in Latin America and the Caribbean, and that includes obviously North America. So we have
Mhm.
developed an integrated strategy for community development, which we really believe is creating a lasting impact.
Yes, and I'm very familiar. Being in Central America and myself, I am very familiar
Hmm.
with what you're describing. El Salvador and Nicaragua have quite similarities, many similarities, to be honest with you, culturally
Hmm.
and also historically. And some are good, others are not that good or great, I should say. But we do share one thing: is the resilience, right? Our spirit
Yes.
to continue forward, to embrace progression, to embrace that idea of personal growth as a family unit too, because your Rayo del Sol focuses a lot on the family unit.
Yeah, exactly. So, if any society is made up of communities, and communities are made up of families. It's the basic building block. And this is an issue we've been exploring. The organization we have today and the programs we have today are the product of many years of work in different places and in different communities. Personally, I've been working in nonprofits, working with folks living in poverty for nearly 30 years, and I tend to be highly critical of nonprofits because
Mm.
honestly, there are a lot of organizations that don't spend money wisely. And glad that Andrew DeGood is with us this morning. He's a key outlier too.
Yay! Yes.
Um, and it's really important to to be good stewards, with the limited resources we have. It's not easy. The nonprofit sector is a difficult sector. We're dependent on external, sources of revenue
Mm-hmm.
always, permanently,
Mm-hmm.
and you really have to have something unique, uh, you know,
Mm.
a, a program design and demonstrated impact that is unique to so many other organizations that are competing for resources and competing for attention. And as a small organization, we're always at a little bit of a disadvantage uh, to be very visible. So having this
Yes.
space with you this morning with this amazing audience is so important to us because it really does help to improve our visibility.
And I love that. And like I said, this is why we offer these type of spaces, because we understand that there are so many different efforts and initiatives out there that need support, that need attention. But not only just that, it's just that to go to the root of what you're doing, you are changing lives for the positive. You are doing so much community work and with so many different organizations in Nicaragua. And you're deep, I mean, like I said, in the communities, from what I've read and for what I'm learning from you, you all service up 37 schools, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, we've chosen intentionally to focus all of our efforts on this one particular region. We could keep growing out, in sort of concentric circles, almost exponentially, because if we manage to eliminate poverty in the region where we're working, we could just keep going outwards, and we'd have communities, living in the same conditions. So that's why we don't have an international focus. Some organizations will have projects or programs in different countries or even in different regions. And obviously, I think a lot of people in this community are in the business sector. You know that if you set up, offices or franchises in remote locations, your overhead rates go up because it's much harder to manage, and it's really hard to stay true to your focus, to your mission, and to be as effective as possible. So we are
Hmm.
poised to grow. We've designed programs that can be replicated quite easily and moved to different locations, depending on availability of resources. But that's sort of our philosophy behind staying in a sort of limited geographic area so that we can increase our impact and keep our expenses as low as possible.
I mean, I like I said, I love and I admire everything that you've done in over, gosh, like over 20 years. But my question to you, and this is one of the most alluring things about your story, is how did you get there and why Nicaragua? So let's take us back to the beginning.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the best decisions that I've probably ever made in my life was not to go straight into college after high school. Um, I think if I had gone straight into college, I would have ended up studying something that wasn't really of great interest, and it would have been a waste of time and money. So, um, having been out, for 4 or 5 years, just roofing houses and trying to stay out of trouble, not very well that was a great way to kind of get a little bit of life experience and focus. And when I started back to school, I had already started working in some nonprofits and volunteering and getting to know people in the nonprofit sector. And I discovered that you could actually make a career out of it. Before that, I thought it was sort of a hobby, something you could do on the side, a pastime. But I realized, through those years of experience, that you really could dedicate your life to that and still make a living. Obviously, if you go into the nonprofit sector, you can forget about accumulating a lot of wealth because it just doesn't happen. We have very limited resources, but it is possible to make a good life. So I ended up going to Virginia Commonwealth University, and fortunately for me, they had what they called a non-traditional studies program there, so you could design your own major. Had to be approved by a committee, and I designed a major called community organization with a minor in Spanish. And so it was focused on
Mhm.
social, political, environmental development. I had a lot of classes in social work, sociology, environmental studies, urban studies, and classes in Spanish. So when I finished, I was looking for a volunteer opportunity in Latin America. Didn't want to just be a backpacking tourist. I really wanted to work, and ended up in Central America. And I fell in love, and it absolutely blew my mind. This was mid '90s, because prior to that, I had been working with homeless folks in Richmond, Virginia, which population with immeasurable needs. But when I got to Central America, the depth and the breadth of the poverty was so overwhelming that I really knew that it was a life commitment to try and make changes there. So I
Hmm.
was down there for a few months as a volunteer, and then about a year later, when I was back in the States, I got an actual paying job offer to go back, and I made a 2-year commitment, and I'm about 26 years into that 2-year commitment, and I'm not sure when my contract is up, but
Yeah. Well, it's safe to say that, man, when the first time that I actually chatted with you, which was literally last week,
right.
it's safe to say that sometimes I even, when I feel like you're more Central American than me. I'm like, he sounds like a Nicaraguan. He sounds like a Nica. I'm like, oh my God, like this is so cool. But it's for me, it's so beautiful to see how, and I'll say, and dearly, an outsider can embrace, our culture, our Central American ways, and understand that we have very, very basic needs, but they're massive in impact and how they can impact
Hmm.
the quality of life that people have in those communities that it's sometimes, they don't even have the access to the most basic things. I was reading like latrines, right? Y'all help build many in the community for those families who really are needy. Tell us a little bit more about how that, because I know there are so many different initiatives within the global effort that you guys are doing. So can you break it down for us, all the different
Yes,
types?
absolutely. Poverty is complex. It really is a complex issue. There are a lot of factors, especially in Latin America. Latin America's political history is is very complex. And largely responsible for the conditions that exist today. Central America and Latin America in general is a resource-rich region that has been exploited from external and internal sources for generations, literally for generations. And I always tell people that Nicaragua is only poor because of politics. Really, it has a lot to do with foreign intervention, and also has a lot to do with the way that the system has been run internally. So in response to that, poverty also means that there's a lack of your basic needs being met. Not enough food on the table, inadequate housing conditions. A lot of times, it's lack of access to water, electricity, not being able to keep children in school for simple reasons like not having a pair of shoes or not having notebooks, and also a lack of opportunities when you manage to get kids into the formal education system and um, get them through elementary and secondary school. Then there's a lack of opportunities. So we've sort of built out the program strategy that responds to those different and changing needs. So as a non-denominational faith-based organization, we also do respond to people's spiritual needs. We create a really open and inclusive format. We're not trying to convert people or plant churches or anything like that. We just create a space where kids, young people, and adults can kind of explore their faith together. People from different traditions, and have that be sort of the foundation of their lives, because that is a critical element of quality of life, in our opinion. And that's
Hmm.
what motivates us to do what we do, but it's not an exclusive factor by any means. And then what we really started doing in the beginning was working on an educational quality program, because there is a public education system in Nicaragua. It is free, but like in many developing countries, it lacks resources, both in terms of staffing and also materials. So we work in a partnership with the Nicaraguan Ministry of Education. We have a working agreement that allows us to work directly in the public school system. So it's a public-private partnership, to put it in sort of common terms. And so we make infrastructure improvements. We provide training for teachers. We set up school libraries because there's very little reading material
Hmm.
available in schools. Reading materials is very scarce in Nicaragua and very expensive because there's no publishing industry in the country. So everything is imported, which means obviously prices are much higher.
Hmm.
Reading comprehension is one of the most fundamental skills for any human being, no matter what you choose to do, whether you go into law or engineering or construction, whatever it is. Everybody needs to have critical, thinking and
Hmm.
reading
Hmm.
skills.
Hmm.
So that's a key element. Our educational quality program also includes school nutrition, because malnutrition continues to be a significant uh, challenge for many families, and obviously a child that is not well fed and is hungry and or has some kind of nutrient deficiency can't learn as well. So
Hmm.
we also
Hmm.
provide a nutritious meal every school day. So in education, we started out focusing on elementary education, and then after a few years, we discovered that we had the amazing problem to deal with of now what do we do once kids get through the sixth grade? So we started a high school scholarship program to make sure that kids could continue because, as you well know, it's very
Yeah.
common for young people to have to go start working at a very young age to contribute to the family income, and and it's often a deterrent from kids being able to stay in school and go to high school. So we
Mm-hmm.
have I should backtrack a little bit. So in the educational quality program, we work with about 5,000 students in those 37 communities, and we work directly with 250 teachers. In the high school program, we have 800 young people this year, most of whom are in high school. But now that we've been implementing this program for a while, we've had some high school graduates too. So we have sort of a select group of students that have university and technical scholarships, so they can continue
Wow.
their development. About 75 of those 800 are university or technical school level. Also,
That's amazing.
another part of our strategy is health because there is socialized medicine in Nicaragua. It's a well-designed program based on the Cuban model, which is one of the world's greatest examples of public
Yes.
health,
Yes.
but it's also under resourced. And so we work also with the Ministry of Health to provide basic health services to both rural and urban communities where there is very limited access. Because as again,
Yep.
children and adults that aren't healthy, they don't have access to medicine, have a really difficult time, studying and learning and working and being, productive and prospering. So health is a key part of it. And the last program is we call community development, which focuses more on economic development strategies. So in the urban areas where we work, we focus on vocational training for young people and adults and small business development. So we have a small fund for family
Mm-hmm.
businesses, a micro lending fund. And the rural areas where there's been a considerable environmental damage, we have also focused on climate change mitigation. So we have a reforestation initiative. We create food forests, which is basically reforesting with fruit trees. We use a system called the biointensive method, which is a small scale organic agriculture system that produces more food per square foot than almost any system on the planet. The latrines, which you mentioned, we also have what's called a rain harvesting system in communities where there's limited access to water. So because it's cost prohibitive to drill a well in many areas in the mountains, we designed a system. I should say we looked at a lot of systems and created our own design. So it's not an original idea. Lots of people in the world do it. That captures rain coming off the roof and channels it to a sanitary tank where it's stored for the dry months because we have 6 months of rain and 6 months of dry in Nicaragua.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have a fuel efficient stove model, which has great health benefits because smoke inhalation in the home is one of the greatest health risks in developing countries. Uh,
Yes.
Primarily for women who are breathing smoke in every day, but also for children. Carbon monoxide can actually cause learning disabilities in children, from 0 to 6 years. So, getting smoke out of the home and reducing firewood consumption is also, a key element of keeping families healthy, and helping them out
Mm-hmm.
economically. So that was a long answer, but that's sort of in a nutshell what we do.
No, I mean, I love it in a nutshell. Yeah, I know, right? It's like you're being Superman over there for these communities you're rallying, but I know that it's not just you. I mean, there's countless volunteers, so many people who donate, sponsors. It's a global effort, and like I said, sometimes, I wonder what people would think really. I mean, is there really a need? Is there really a need? I look back and I think of my childhood growing up in El Salvador.
Hmm.
And for me, it's like, yeah, there's always a need. Even when I went back to El Salvador to see how things were 20 plus years later, there's still a need. Everything is not right. Everything is not okay. When I was growing up, I can see myself in one of those the children, in the children in Nicaragua. I can see myself. That was who I was. Grew up very poor, no electricity. When we used to live out in el campo, right? And the farmlands and outskirts of the city or way out there. And, we didn't have a latrine. We didn't have this. So we didn't have the basic needs sometimes met. But we made it. right? We found a way to make it. But what lacks a lot of out there is education. And this is what I see, that more than anything, fundamentally, Rayo De Sol is really trying to, help the communities become more educated so that they understand that there are dangers, such as the smoking inhalation. I would have never thought that, right? I saw my grandmother cooking indoors,
Hmm.
cooking with the stove. And well, you didn't think anything of it. You're sitting right next to her, waiting for the food to be done or waiting for the coffee to heat up, and you don't think anything as a child. You think everything is fine, but you're right. There are dangers, and this is what we're really trying to do nowadays. So, how large is the need? And is it a continuous need, or is it just something like, oh, in a couple of years we'll be fine? They're going to be self sufficient. Like, no, it's a recurring thing, correct?
Yeah, the need is significant. Like I said earlier, we could keep expanding outwards, which we hope to do, and keep adding in communities with the same needs as the communities we're working with today. So a couple things have happened. Nicaragua, as I mentioned, if you look at, you can do a brief, internet search on Nicaragua's history, and you'll see that the politics have really held the country back, and a lot of foreign intervention. I'll leave that political question for everybody's personal analysis without getting too deeply into it. Although it's no secret that U.S. foreign policy has played a heavy hand in Latin American politics. Going back more than 100 years. The U.S. Marines landed in Nicaragua for the first time in the 1890s. Just to give you an idea, which is also why it's a baseball country, right? Um,
Yes, yes. Mhm.
so, politics aside, the current situation was sort of worsening. Things were looking up for several years. We saw an increase in tourism. Nicaragua was getting a lot of attention in international tourist magazines as a much lower budget destination with all the same natural beauty as places like Costa Rica. So things were looking good. It was attracting foreign investment, and all of a sudden in 2018, there was a political conflict. There was sort of a, let's call it, a failed coup attempt against the government, and there was a lot of violence for several months. It was really one step away from a civil war, and uh, because of that, almost everything just came to a halt. Tourism was basically, down to zero. The U.S. State Department travel advisory went up to level 3, which basically says don't go there unless it's an absolute emergency.
Mhm.
It can be shot on the street. And then obviously right after that, COVID hit. So flights were canceled, and since that time, so in the past 5 years, we have seen things actually, going backwards. We've seen poverty levels increasing. We have seen, worsening social conditions. The government, in their defense, is doing a good job of responding to a lot of needs, but obviously, they can't do it alone. That's why we partner with them. And
Mhm.
because of this,
Mhm.
we've also seen an increase in migration. So immigration, no matter what side of the political aisle you sit on, is a controversial issue. I won't get into the politics of it. What I can say though is that we see, immigration from the other side of the lens. So what we see on our end is, families being divided. Parents often having to leave children with relatives, or older siblings raising younger siblings. We've seen, a lot of really critical situations for children and young people whose families are split up, and that's sort of the aftermath. So,
Mhm.
our position is we want people to stay where they are, and you well know that most families would really prefer not to have to leave the country, not to take the risk, not to go into debt to be able to
Yep.
pay, a coyote to get to the border, but to stay in their community with their families. And so we
Yep.
are really working to create those opportunities to make that possible.
I love that you said that, Peter. You know why? Because exactly that is exactly my family story, and it's so many, countless, thousands of families too. We would have preferred to stay in El Salvador. My parents would have preferred to stay in El Salvador. They had, a business running there, but because of the civil
Mhm.
war and just the pressures of not being able to make money and to survive, right? They're like, okay, we got to go. So being torn apart from my parents for 7 years, 7 years. And like you
Mhm.
said, they had to leave us with my grandmother. So I grew up with my grandmother. I don't remember my parents being there. I just know I used to talk to them on the phone, but that's not the most conducive environment for a child, right? And we definitely want the family unit to remain together. So I'm glad that you brought that point up because it does affect how children develop, and the entire environment, the ecosystem and the nurturing system that they have. So that's a very key important point. I do wanted to share a couple of guys. I left the QR code there for the foundation, for the organization, I'm sorry, Rayo De Sol. And this is one of the beautiful things that I want you guys to understand. Like, yes, there's gazillions of different organizations out there, nonprofits, but this one hits home for me just because it really resonates with my story and seeing myself in those children. So I wanted to share a couple of pretty much like just pictures. I think I told you that I was going to do this, but I just wanted to make
Hmm.
sure that you knew. And so you can talk a little bit about them as we go through it. So tell us a little bit about this, because I love reading. And the fact that I see a
Hmm.
child with a book in their hands, and I'm just like, yes, let's go.
Yes, absolutely. Like I said a few minutes ago, reading is such a critical life skill. We see kids that sometimes get stuck in the education system because they didn't learn adequate reading comprehension skills. And so the more that kids have access to reading materials, we want to start by making reading fun and enjoyable for kids, because that's how you develop a love of reading. And I was fortunate to grow up in a house in suburban Connecticut where we had books in the house, and my dad read bedtime stories to me. But that's not the norm around the world. And we want kids to have access to reading materials and to develop that love of reading, because as they read, their vocabulary gets better, their grammar gets better, their understanding of the world gets better. So we started out creating school libraries and working with children in what we call reading clubs. But then at some point we realized that the teachers don't read and teachers don't really like to read. So
Mm,
we decided to do something a little bit risky, because we are outliers at the end of the day. And we started teachers reading clubs, which were voluntary participation. We kind of made it an open, non-threatening space. People in Nicaragua tend to think of reading as sort of a chore, something that's necessary but not
mm-hmm,
pleasant. And we started just introducing interesting, fun literature to teachers, short stories and things that were easy to read and digest, and have discussions about it. And now it's one of the most popular things that we do. We've got more than 150 teachers that participate voluntarily, and we make teachers read out loud and analyze and discuss different concepts that we're reading, not so much from a literary perspective but just a life
mm-hmm,
perspective, like how can I relate this story to my life. And
mm-hmm.
I think we've made some significant progress in reading both with children and with adults.
I love that. I love that. Just because, like I said, reading for me was fundamental when I was learning English. And I too am literally like just breaking that narrative that we don't like to read, because Salvadoran people really don't like to read either. I'm just
Hmm.
telling you this. So we have so many similarities, but
Yep.
how do we start breaking that or changing the narrative and the
Hmm.
generational curses, right? So, and these are some of the aspects that when I think of my culture and reflect on it, I'm like, okay, that will stop with me. My kids will not carry that forward in our legacy. So it's amazing. So people send books. How can, do we just donate books, or how do we get them to you?
Um, I mean, if we get donated books, we can find a way to get them there. Honestly, it's a lot easier for us to buy books locally. There are only a couple of book
Makes sense.
suppliers,
Hmm.
but we do belong to. There's a national initiative. It's called the National Reading Campaign. It's a coalition of about 30 organizations and some for-profit businesses
Hmm.
that have come together to promote reading in elementary schools. And so
Okay.
through this coalition, we do sort of bulk purchasing.
Okay.
Honestly, it's a little bit difficult for us to get a lot of resources into the country right now. It's sort of expensive. The tax structure has been
Mm,
uh, readjusted to accommodate for the economic conditions, and it can be a little bit expensive to get them there.
understood.
However, if people had a lot of donated books, we would find a way to get them there. But
Yes.
to be perfectly frank about it, a cash donation so that we can purchase books on our end is probably an easier way to get it done.
It makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. I just, I didn't think about it. I just think of, yes, let's get booked together and ship them. But it makes sense on all the logistics. What about, can you tell us a little bit more about this right here?
Oh yes. So again, sort of to compare it, with I know not all of us in the community are from the U.S., but speaking from a U.S. perspective, um, in a pretty much any small town or city, as a kid, you can choose to participate in different sports, or you could choose an instrument in the school band, or
Hmm.
or theater. I mean, we just have a wealth of opportunities available, and all of those activities contribute to our development as human beings and also increase learning potential, right? So art and sports and things like that aren't just fun, they actually do increase learning capability. That's been proven scientifically. And because not very much is available for kids in Nicaragua, we try and create as many opportunities as possible. So this picture, for example, every year we organize sports activities. Some of them are, for the smaller kids, we do sort of like local traditional games, and the bigger kids will play kickball and soccer and things like that. It just creates, a recreational space, where kids can have fun, and it's a safe space. But it also does contribute, to their development and to their learning capacity. So
Hmm.
it's something that we would really like to do more with in terms of sports. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I met with some friends in Milwaukee that have an organization called Sports Philanthropy Network, which is something that we're exploring a partnership. But if anybody has ideas about how to build out sports and recreation programs, we are always open to suggestions about how we can do a better job of what we're trying to do.
Love that. Well, I believe LinkedIn is definitely the place to be able to look for those collaborative partnerships. So y'all make sure that y'all hit us up. I'll put the QR code in a little bit here because I just want to make sure that y'all get everything, understand everything that Mr. Peter and Rayo De Sol are doing. So I do have more pictures because, like I said, I fell in love with everything, and every single thing that y'all do is how ingrained it is in and founded in education. So this one right here was one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to make a quick response to Paul's question about my favorite thing about Nicaragua, besides coffee. Leave coffee
Ah,
aside. Just
yes.
after coffee, I usually tell people the reason I decided to stay is because of family and community. As we talked about, it's a culture that is still really rooted in family and community, and it's not that that has disappeared completely in other parts of the world, but it's definitely in danger of disappearing. Certainly in the Northeast, where I'm from, it's sort of a cold, distant culture. But in Nicaragua, if you just when you get there in February, Paul, I'm glad you're going on that trip. You will find that you will be welcomed with open arms into the community as soon as you step off the plane. Um,
Mhm,
so
mhm,
this photo is something we started a couple of years ago. Since we have so many kids that are in high school and university or on their way to university, we also discovered that it's really difficult for kids to have mentors in their families because a lot of the kids in our program are the first students in their family to go to high school. So it's difficult for families to help kids make a decision on what to study or what kind of career to choose because they simply don't have that experience.
mhm,
So we set up what we call a vocational fair. We invite local universities, local technical schools, because we are also large proponents of technical education, as a great alternative to university. Not everybody has to go to university to have a good career and a good life. Technical schools, and there is a public system in Nicaragua, which is really good. So we encourage a lot of kids to go into technical fields as well. And we also get some local professionals to come to this fair and just kind of talk about, how they made the decision to study what they studied, what their work entails, what their academic program was like, and just help kids to have a better understanding of different options that they have. And we also do some evaluations with kids so they can identify their skills and their abilities and also their passions, because a lot of kids will just sort of generically choose a field, like business administration or accounting
mhm,
or something like that, because I think it's a way to get a good decent job. But
mhm.
we also want them to go into fields about which they feel passionate and have a real interest. So it's really a mentoring process by which we try and guide kids towards the best possible decision.
And that's why this speaks a lot to me, to be honest with you, because when I was going through my teenage years, trying to acculturate, assimilate, I just didn't have a mentor that way. I didn't have a role model to guide me in navigating. my possibilities, right? So I never thought anything like being the first one to go to college in my family was a possibility, or being the first one to, yes, I want to become a doctor, or
Hmm.
being an engineer. Like that never crossed my mind because it wasn't ingrained, it wasn't passed down. So I'm just so happy that you're breaking that narrative, like you're breaking the generational curse that we bring from our culture, because it's so important. All these, the young kids, they can dream, but now that dream can be palpable. You can do it. And being able to give them a path, that is what made the
Hmm.
difference for me. That I was given a path and say, yes, you can do this, Raquel, so go out there and do it. And so this is,
Hmm.
to me, this is important. So I, man, I applaud you. Like, I am just so inspired. If you're not inspired, I don't know what you need to do, in the audience. But this is another one that I loved because I love art. I love seeing kids expressing themselves through art, and it's a healthy way also, right?
Absolutely. So creativity is one of our core values. It's so important to everything we do, from everything from our program design, which, we use a lot of creativity in designing programs and, in community involvement, but also just giving kids that opportunity for that sort of, open expression. Because again, it's fun, it's satisfying, but it also does contribute to, intellectual development. So it's
Yes.
multi-purpose. I mean, it really does help to, um, and I'm definitely not an expert on this, but to activate areas of our brain which are normally dormant. So when you play sports, or if you participate in art classes or an art project, it's like sending signals to parts of our brain that we don't use, on a day-to-day basis, and that
Mm-hmm.
just increases our learning capability and increases our academic potential, and it just really enriches our lives in general. So we try and create as many opportunities for creative activities for kids as well.
I love it. But it's not just for kids. And this is the part that got me. I was like, wait, wait, wait. What is this? I mean, you have the small business owners, right? But I love the fact that you also appeal to the adults and the moms, right? And the fathers. But tell me a little bit about this one. Small business. Mhm.
Yeah, now you're hitting on my the favorite part of what we do. Obviously, we all have our passions too, and this is mine in particular. This is an area where I personally and professionally have sort of focused more attention. So, like I said at the beginning, poverty is complex, and education obviously is a pillar to reducing or eliminating poverty, but it's a medium to long term proposition. So if we're thinking about improving, education for children today, let's say starting with preschool, elementary school, you're talking about 15 to 20 years before that actually starts to show an impact, right? It's a long term process. And when families are living in abject poverty and don't have their basic needs met, you really can't wait 15 years, to create results. So we work with also another public agency. It's a great um, ministry that was created by the government probably about 10 years ago. It's called the Ministry of Family Economy. They partner with us to provide a lot of training. We also do training on our own to work with parents of all ages and all education levels, because a lot of the parents that we work with have no formal education, or at best a third or fourth grade education, and we make things accessible. So we provide, entrepreneurship training. We implement vocational courses because that's something that's also difficult to get access to. And then we have a
Mm-hmm.
fund for seed capital to start small family businesses. So the simple reason is that there isn't a lot of formal employment available, in the Nicaraguan economy. And so sometimes you just have to start a business, in your home with your family in order to generate income. It's not like you can
Mm-hmm.
just get training, get educated, and then go apply for a job, because there just aren't that many jobs available. So
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
everybody is an entrepreneur by nature, but we have seen, really positive results in the small businesses. We have several small bakeries that we started. We have a carpentry shop. We have women that sew, either make clothing or do, a lot of
Yep.
like clothing repairs at home. We have other families that do different types of food preparation. We have some small farmers, that are trying to expand from growing just basic crops like beans and corn to growing, higher end vegetables, things that have a higher market value. So we have really a diversity. Most of our microcredit clients are women. We don't limit it to women, but we also work with a local partner called Convoy of Hope. They have a women's empowerment initiative. So we work with a group of women that get a series of training sessions, and then also get seed capital to start a business on the other side. So
I love that.
it's a way to create a sort of an immediate response to the critical situation while we're improving education and improving opportunities.
Absolutely. And like I said, that is one of the things that speaks to me, Peter, because for me, Latinas are in my heart, and anything that I can do to empower women or young Latinas to, explore the creativity and actually do something about it, it inspires me. So I'm so happy to see that you are focusing on moms, that, the initiative is focusing on just exploring and giving the moms a sense of like, hey, I can be creative. I don't have to be just a housewife and tend to the kids. Like I can actually explore and do hobbies, and maybe that hobby will turn into a side hustle. That hustle may turn into a business, a small business, and that business can be, scaled. So I love that. Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
and so I didn't know what pictures to choose because you have
yeah.
so many beautiful things and so many projects, but this one really caught my eye because it's you work with other local, right? That they provide organic products. Like I love that, or fortified soy. Like I would have never thought of that in El Salvador. Like fortified what? We don't know these things.
Yeah, so this is connected to the school nutrition program. Obviously, kids need to have good nutrition, and when children are malnourished, it's a combination of things. It can be a lack of calories, and it can also be a nutrient deficient like calcium deficiency, vitamin A, iron. Those are some of the most common because there's not a lot of diversity in their diet. So having these products like the fortified soy products is sort of it's a little bit controversial because we are bringing in external resources, and I would love to buy everything locally, but we couldn't afford to provide all the calories that we get donated through these products. So
Mm.
it is a way to ensure that children get enough calories and enough nutrients in their meals, and we supplement it, as you can see in the picture, with local produce. So we do buy, in addition to the fortified products we get donated, we buy local produce, local dairy products from a network of local farmers to the degree possible. That's something we're building out. We still have to buy some things in the market just because of the volume, the sheer volume of the
Hmm.
purchase which we make. But we have been working with a network of about 20 local farmers who grow things like squash, onions, tomatoes, peppers, carrots, potatoes, and we purchase as much as we can directly, and then we work training moms on how to prepare meals that are nutritious and balanced, because I'm sure, as you know, that it's not very common for families to consume a lot of vegetables. I mean, we
No,
live in
it's not.
the
Yeah.
perfect climate to grow vegetables,
And we
but
don't.
yeah, people don't typically consume a lot of, especially leafy vegetables and things like that. So we
Mhm.
find ways to incorporate more nutrient dense vegetables into the school diet, so that children can get accustomed to eating them, and also the moms know different ways to prepare them.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, this one definitely caught my eye because I was like, "Oh my gosh, look at that!" They're really diversifying what's out there, and teaching them how to actually incorporate it into their daily habits and cooking. So it embodies so many different aspects of our fundamental education at home. So I love that. Like I said, I just fell in love with everything, and I'm just like, I don't know what to choose, but this one also is so important to me.
Yes, so this is also getting tied into my personal passions. The area we work in, Nicaragua has not done a very good job of conserving natural resources like Costa Rica has. There's not a national park system. There isn't sufficient legislation, uh, environmentally. There's a lot of forest loss. So in the mountains where we work, expansion of the agricultural frontiers and small scale livestock and also firewood have probably caused about a 60 to 70% forest loss. So every year we work with rural communities. We work with more than 200 families to plant trees. We distribute at least 5,000 trees a year, and most of those are fruit trees. So that also it has to be a balance. I mean, we need to restore forests with local hardwood species as well. We need to make sure that we're also restoring biodiversity. But by creating what we call food forests with fruit trees, we're also creating a source of food and or income. In a best case scenario, both for families that participate. So
Mhm.
we've got a 6 month window of rain. So we usually do two distributions of trees. We just finished the second one right now, because we're at the tail end of the rainy season. And this year, I think we've distributed about 7,000 trees.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm telling you, like, I'm so excited sitting here on this side of the world and knowing that all these things are going to happen. Like, I want to volunteer, I want to go and do things to help out. And I know that volunteers are crucial in these initiatives. I know that many of the from the Outlier program and or project, sorry, they are going on a trip from what Andrew is saying. So tell us a little bit about that too. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's we're so excited for that trip, and I know that Paul and Andrew, at least, that are on here right now, are signed up for that trip.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity for a lot of different reasons. In the first part, it's an opportunity for people to just be there and get to know. I think the most important thing, rather than actually getting things done, is to just get to know people, talk to people. We always have translators on hand, so language is never a barrier. We never want people to feel like just because they don't speak Spanish they can't go. We always make sure that we have that covered. So the first part of it is relational. Just understanding more about visiting families, visiting their homes. Seeing what their challenges are, and really being able to respond, to those needs. And it's also a great way. We use a lot of these volunteer trips to get a lot of projects done that are sort of off budget. So we would love to have a lot more money for things like school infrastructure, but sometimes we just can't cover it all. So every group that comes down, like the Outlier Project in February,
Yes.
we choose a small project. Everybody contributes. Some groups will do a fundraising effort. Some groups will just build in a contribution into the trip cost,
Hmm.
and we finance small initiatives like this group. That came, the guy that's out front there, he was a great
Yes.
volunteer. He came from Atlanta with his family. There were a couple families that came down, and we worked on building a school kitchen with this group. These families
Oh my
raised funds to cover
God.
the costs. They worked in the community, worked with the kids, worked with a week long. And at the end of the week, with community participation, we had a brand new kitchen built for a school where before that they didn't have, a sanitary place to prepare school meals. So we're always open.
Wow.
The Outlier trip is coming together. We've got a few other groups on the calendar for next year, but we are always open to folks coming down and visiting. Just getting to know firsthand. It's also a beautiful country. We always include at least one day of visiting some tourist destinations. So it's funny. I meant to mention this at the beginning, but Nicaragua, like a lot of developing countries, is kind of funny in the sense that you can go to places in Nicaragua where there's basically modern conditions available, like a shopping mall, restaurants, or whatever, and feel like maybe you're in some part of Miami. Maybe not that developed,
Really?
but there's in the cities, for example, there are there's more infrastructure and more services available. But if you go to the outskirts of the city, or certainly out in the rural areas, you will find that people are basically living like they did, in the 19th century. So
Hmm.
unfortunately,
Hmm.
even though there's progress and development for certain sectors of the population, the great majority are sort of left out in that process, and which is why we focus probably more attention on the rural areas, but we also work in some urban neighborhoods that are sort of on the outskirts of the cities. Like in all developing countries, there's always pressure from people migrating from rural communities to the city, think they're going to find a better life. So
Hmm. Hmm.
that's
And,
that's
and
how we
that's what
choose our.
usually happens. And that's what usually happens, the young people really start leaving those communities. So that just leaves those communities in even more of shambles because they don't have an influx of resources, right?
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, like, let me tell you guys, please scan the code. Oh, I'm just like, this is amazing. It's such an amazing opportunity for us to get involved. I know there's gazillions of them, but this one, like I said, it really hits my heart because it hits on so many aspects: community, right? Family, education, creativity. All those things are so important to me that it just resonates. And I applaud and commend you and I admire you for everything that you're doing in shaping communities, in helping one family at a time. So There was one little thing that I wanted to do, y'all, because if y'all don't know, Mr. Peter is fluent in Spanish. So quería hacer esa conversación, que hablaras en español un poquito, que me dijeras cuál es tu visión para el país, cuál es tu visión para esas comunidades, porque creo que es algo muy importante de hablar.
Bueno, nosotros tenemos que tener una visión, ¿verdad? Porque trabajar en desarrollo significa que tiene que crear una imagen de la sociedad, de la comunidad que queremos ver en 10 o 20 años. Es un sueño, porque de otra manera yo creo que vivir con el día al día, con la presión de la pobreza, de la escasez de recursos, puede ser muy frustrante, ¿verdad? Y mucha gente se decepciona y se queda en el camino, honestamente.
Ujú.
Pero nosotros tenemos que instalar un sentido de esperanza en las personas, en las familias, en las comunidades, de que algo mejor realmente es posible. Y solo es posible cuando todos trabajamos juntos. Y esa es la motivación de tener tantos voluntarios, de tener las comunidades involucradas en cada aspecto de nuestros programas para poder realmente construir en conjunto pues un futuro diferente.
Mi gato que se cruza aquí.
Sí.
Pero la verdad te digo, Peter, que eres una persona, yo soy súper admirada con todo tu esfuerzo. Es un esfuerzo y una iniciativa del corazón y creo que eso es algo que nos identifica y por eso nos unimos cuando las personas nos reconocemos el uno al otro, que tenemos un corazón que quiere hacer el bien para la comunidad. Yo creo que eso es algo que nos une más. En esta sociedad que nos quiere literalmente separar y dividir, nosotros estamos buscando una manera de cómo unirnos, aliarnos y juntos crear un nuevo futuro para nuestras familias y para nuestros hijos. Te agradezco
Sí.
por el tiempo, te agradezco por toda la lucha y todo lo que estás haciendo. Un saludo para el proyecto de Outlier. So I'm going to switch back. The Outlier Project, thank you so much for the opportunity to meet such a fantastic individual like Mr. Peter. I know there's so many. I saw Andrew, I saw Paul, so many others in there. And shout out to you, Mr. Scott McGregor, for creating such a
Mhm.
community that is with heart. And this is the one thing that, like I said, it appealed to me because this is what I do every single day. We lead with kindness, we lead with love, and also impacting communities in way of education. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to learn more about you and let us know how we can connect with you, how people can connect and support.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raquel, for creating this space. It's been amazing. I've been reading all the comments as we go, and I've abstained from responding. So I hope that I can get connected, directly with a lot of the folks on the
Yeah, I
that
can't
that are
keep up,
connected
Peter.
today.
I can't keep up with the comments, so we can always go back after the show. Yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody's interested in, and if there's a question that didn't get answered, please feel free to just send me an invite to connect on LinkedIn, and we can have more conversations about it. So, obviously, in the nonprofit sector, we always need resources. Right now I'm on a 3-week fundraising trip because, like I said in the beginning, we don't have a way of generating revenue. I can say, and I'll say this with all sincerity, having worked in nonprofits for so long, and being highly critical of a lot of nonprofits, we are extremely responsible stewards with the resources we have. There are a lot of good organizations out there, but a lot of organizations also that really dilute their impact, through a lot of different expenses. So we try and have the lowest overhead rate possible and dedicate as much as possible directly to our program. So if people are interested in coming down on a trip or volunteering, that's definitely an option. We always need donors. I think sometimes people feel like if they can't write a $10,000 check, they can't donate. But we have donors that give $25 a month. The $25 a month
Mhm.
covers a high school scholarship for the entire year. It's $300.
Yep. Yep.
A stove, for example, costs $200. So any amount that people are willing to donate is so much appreciated. Every dollar has a great impact in Nicaragua. The dollars go a lot farther. So we welcome people to contribute if you're able. If you have questions, if you want to designate your donation to something specific, that's fine too. We can definitely do that. Please contact me directly if you have any questions. Our financials are public record. I don't know if everybody knows this, but if you're going to donate to a nonprofit, you can look up what's called their 990 report, which is the report we file with the IRS, and all of that is public record. So if you have any doubts about how we spend our money, who makes what and all that, you can see all of that on our financials, and
Mhm.
we're an open book. we do a lot of things pretty well. There are a lot of things we'd like to improve, and we're always open to people making suggestions on how we can work better.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you guys, so I urge you to connect with Mr. Peter, connect, support Rayo De Sol. I'm so in love. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Like I'm speechless because I'm like, I just want to say so much, but I know we run out of time. And I just want to tell everyone, if you don't know how to start helping, the first thing you do is just share this information with somebody who would appreciate this, because like I said, there are so many individuals who are needing just any type of help, whether it's financial, whether it's educational. There are always communities that are needy, and we definitely want to make sure that we are helping as much as we can. And I am just so thrilled to have been able to find this and meet you, and now we're going to try to work together and see what we can do, collaborate, because again, this is why we're doing this. We are meeting people, connecting with folks who are doing great things in the world. And what else, like, what can I say? I'm inspired. So, any parting words on your end before we wrap up, Peter?
I'm just so appreciative, you first for making the space available, and also to everybody that's taking time out on a Saturday morning to tune in and to listen to the situation. Nicaragua, it's just not a particularly important country in the way we're living in today in a world on fire. I mean, there are crises everywhere we look. And small countries that don't make the news a lot are kind of forgotten. And so one of my favorite poets is Gary Snyder, if anybody's familiar, but he has a phrase that I think of, I think at least 3 times a day, every day of my life. He said, find your place on the planet, dig in and take responsibility from there. So, the place that
Oh,
I found on the planet is Nicaragua, and I've just decided to dig in and take responsibility to the degree possible. And if anybody is interested in becoming involved, you'd be very much welcome. I mean, we're just really concerned about growing our network and meeting more people and just increasing our impact. So thank you so much for this space today.
oh my gosh. Okay, well, you got me. I'm gonna be there with you, walking along with you, walking
All
tall.
right.
Shout out, walking tall movement, and Chris Malazewski. Like I said, gosh, I'm lost of words, because I'm so in love with everything that you're doing. So thank you so much to everyone in the comments. I hope that you guys connected. I hope that you guys support. If you can, go ahead and share it. That is literally, you're doing this communities. Just think about all the communities and the kids. The kids are our future. The youth is it's literally what we're dependent upon to make sure that when we go old, we're going to be taken care of, I believe. So thank you,
Yes.
everyone. I love you. Just make sure that you tune in next week, next Saturday. We're going to have another fantastic show. You don't want to miss it. I just thank you, everyone. And if you want to find out more, make sure that you connect with me, with Peter, with anyone else in the comment to find out more about Rayo de Sol. Los quiero mucho y nos vemos hasta la próxima, ¿ok? Ciao.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, and I hope our chat inspired you to make a new connection. Please like and subscribe, and let's build a great community in our little corner where we get serious business done by injecting fun. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, come back to Raquel's Connection Corner.